Welcome to Beginning Game Programming with C#. I'm Tim Dr. T. Shamallard, and I'll be your instructor for this course. I'm an associate professor in the Computer Science Department at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, where I teach our undergraduate game design and development courses. I'm also the program director for our Bachelor of Innovation in Game Design and Development, a complete bachelor's degree designed to get people ready to start their own indie game development companies. I also spent 5.5 years as an indie game developer in a company that I started with my 2 sons. So why Dr. T? Well, I teach a lot of freshmen, and freshmen are trained in high school to call their teachers Ms. Smith or Mr. Jones and so on. So the first time that one of my students accidentally calls me Mr. T, everyone knows that it's wrong. As a visual reminder, yes, I am Dr. T. No, I'm not Mr. T. I have 3 important course learning objectives for this course. The first is to teach you basic programming concepts, independent of game development. Assuming you've never programmed before, there are lots of ideas behind programming, developing software that applies to video games, but also applies to any other software. And so we will cover those foundational ideas as part of the course. The second learning objective is about basic object-oriented concepts. C# is an object-oriented language, which means that we build our C# programs as sets of interacting objects, and they collaborate to make our program do whatever we want. The object-oriented paradigm is really useful for game development because if you think about games, we have lots of interacting game entities that make our game run. And so these are important core concepts for C# programmers in general, but also for game developers who are doing their development in C#. So we'll learn about important things like classes and objects and so on. The last learning objective is about using the XNA framework to actually build games. Now, those of you who are aware of the XNA framework will realize that Microsoft stopped adding additional functionality to XNA several years ago, but we're going to be working with Monogame, which is a cross-platform open source implementation of the XNA framework, which is really awesome because we can build games for Windows and Mac and Linux and iOS and all kinds of different operating systems, which is even better than what the original framework was set up to do. So how's the course structured? Well, this is an on-demand course, so you can work through it at your own pace, but the suggestion is that you spend about 12 weeks doing it. And if you spend about 12 weeks doing it, as a beginning programmer, you'll probably be looking at around 10 hours or so a week to actually really get the material internalized. So there are 7 weeks of new material. We also have 4 weeks of recovery weeks. And then there's a final week where you take the final exam, but you also do a final peer evaluation and you can do an optional project and so on if you'd like. If you're curious about why we have new learning and recovery weeks, you should look at the reading for week 1 that talks about flow and course structure, and I explain in more detail why we do that. How do you earn your grade in the course? Well, there are 3 components. There are the programming assignments, and there will be 6 of those. There's a single project that you'll complete, but you'll complete it in 5 separate increments because that's how we develop games. We don't just bang it out all at once. We develop it a small piece at a time. So that's what we'll do. And both the programming assignments and the project increments are peer-reviewed activities. So you will generate your solution and submit it, and then you will be peer reviewing a number of your peers to actually figure out what grade everyone has deserved in the class for the work they did on that particular assignment. The final piece is a final exam worth 22%, and that is a multiple choice exam that you will take in the final week of the class. So the thing about programming is it's important that you practice doing it, and lots of practice is required to get good at it. So I have provided some optional assignments as well that you can complete in addition to the graded work. And that optional work consists of 16 different optional labs you can do, smaller pieces of functionality that you implement as you learn new topics, and that optional game project that I mentioned that you can do at the end of the course to prepare for the final exam. Here is a book that I wrote, full disclosure. I wrote this book about beginning C# programming with Monogame, and I wrote this book for this course. So this book covers the topics, assuming you've never programmed before, and applies to all the things that you'll be doing in this course. I strongly recommend you get it. It is only available on Amazon. There are free Kindle readers for PCs and Macs in case you don't happen to own one form of Kindle or another. But I do want to be clear. You can absolutely complete the course without the book. You do not have to buy the book to successfully complete the course, but I should also warn you that you will probably spend extra time searching the web or posting on the forums or doing a variety of different things to try to find out answers that are in the book. It's impossible for me to teach. I think the book is like 550 pages or something. It's impossible for me to cover everything in the book in video lectures. And so this is a useful resource, but you are absolutely able to make the money versus time trade-off, deciding not to buy the book and just surf the web when you're looking for answers to your questions. So I want to be clear. This course does not assume you have any previous programming experience. We are going to start at the very beginning, and we're going to go through all the topics that you need to know to be able to successfully complete the course. Periodically, once in a while, even if you do have the book, you might have to go look something up in the book or online if you don't have the book. But we're going to make sure you have the appropriate foundation to successfully do what you need to do in the course. I also want to be clear, though, that beginner, this is a beginner course. Beginner doesn't mean easy. Some people perceive that beginner should mean easy, but this is hard work. Learning to program when you've never done it before is really hard to do. And so it's kind of like learning to ride a bike, right? The first time you tried to ride a bike and it was really hard, you didn't claim that the person who was teaching you how to ride the bike assumed you already knew how to ride, right? It was just difficult to learn because sometimes it's hard to learn new things. So you may struggle with some of the material. That doesn't mean it's not for beginners. It just means it's hard, just like learning lots of stuff is hard for the first time. Now, it is perfectly natural for you to feel frustration and to swear at your computer or at me or any other, I'm not an inanimate object, but at any entity you need to swear at as you struggle with this. The struggle is part of it, right? We fall down sometimes when we're learning to ride a bike, and we fall down sometimes as we're learning to program. And so that's a natural part of the process. You'll get frustrated, and then you will feel so rewarded when you actually solve particular problems. This is worth the struggle. Programming is a blast. Programming games is really fun, but programming anything, if you're geeky like me, let me adjust my glasses. If you're geeky like me, programming anything is fun, but it's hard work to get to the place where it is fun to do. And so if you work through that frustration, you can get to the place where you can do some really cool things. You do have to actually do the programming. You can't learn to program just by watching the videos and reading the book and saying, there, now I know how to program, right? That would be like watching a snowboarder and reading about snowboarding and saying, there, now I know how to snowboard because I've watched somebody else do it and I read about it. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to do it. And that's why there are plenty of programming assignments in the course. And in fact, there's that optional material as well. So what happens if you get stuck? Well, there are a number of places to go. And this is, of course, not like a regular course, right? This is based on our freshman college course at UCCS for beginning game programmers. So it's a challenging course, like a regular college course, but it's different in that you don't really have access to me, right? In the previous sessions, we had over 200,000 people enrolled. You can't send me an email and expect that I'll answer it. Even if you can find my email address, you should assume I'll ignore your email. And you can call me, but I won't answer the phone. All kinds of things. You don't get the sort of professor attention that you would usually get in a course. So where do you go for help? Well, one place you can go is the web, but use caution there. I will tell you, and you may not already know this, but so I'll tell you that not everything on the web is true, right? There are people who are going to give you advice for how to program and they don't know what they're talking about. And in fact, I actually had a student in one of my classes one time. He came to me with a problem, his code didn't work, and he had done it exactly opposite from the way I had taught him, and the way it said in the book, and the way I'd discussed in lectures, and everything. And I said, well, why did you do it exactly opposite from the way I said to do it? And he said, well, I found somebody on the web, and they told me I should do it this way. I may be more credible as a source for learning to program compared to an anonymous guy or gal on the web, so you might want to take that into account. The other thing is, we have a class forum where you can go and ask questions and post responses and help each other. In previous offerings of this course, the forum was fantastic. People were really, really helpful for each other, and so that's a good place to go. You should read the Coursera Code of Conduct before you start posting on the forum. And, we're all in this together, or you're all in this together, and so help each other. Right? You can be mean to people online if you need to be. Go on an online game, camp where the noobs spawn and headshot them if that's what you have to do to sort of get satisfaction. But this isn't the place for it, right? This is the place to help each other learn this sometimes difficult material. So I'm not trying to scare you away, right? It's hard work to learn to program, but it is fantastically rewarding to actually be able to program and start creating the games that you envision. To actually turn them into reality is a fantastic thing. And this course is designed to help you on your path to getting to where you can do exactly that.